phone buzzes, another group invitation, but instead of excitement, you feel drained, like you'd rather reorganize your bookshelf than make small talk that doesn't even matter. For years, I thought something was wrong with me until I discovered what psychologists have been documenting for decades. Here's what makes this fascinating. Research from the University of Chicago reveals something critical. We conflate two completely different experiences. There's loneliness, that painful feeling your social needs aren't met, and then there's chosen solitude, something else entirely. You can live a solitary life and feel completely content, or be surrounded by dozens of people and feel profoundly lonely. The difference isn't about how many friends you have, it's about whether your connections align with what you actually need. Think about this. Someone with 3 close friends since college versus someone with 800 Instagram followers who feels empty inside. UCLA's loneliness scale measures questions like "I feel isolated." What researchers found, people give completely opposite answers while having similar size networks. We're not measuring quantity, we're measuring the quality of feeling seen, understood, and valued. Now, here's where it gets psychologically interesting. People who prefer smaller circles aren't running away from connection, they're chasing something more meaningful. Personality research shows these folks have self-awareness, emotional independence, and intrinsic motivation. They do things because it matters to them, not to impress anyone else. They have an inner life so rich that needing approval from everyone else is not a priority anymore. Here's the wild thing. Science says people comfortable with solitude have something most people don't. They can sit with their own thoughts. No panic, no desperate scramble for their phone. Psychologists call it emotional self-regulation, handling your own feelings without constantly handing that job to someone else. And before you think that sounds lonely, hang on. Studies show people okay with being alone end up with deeper, more legitimate relationships. Why? Because they reach out from a place of being whole, not from desperate need. They invest their social energy in people who actually matter. Quality over quantity isn't just a bumper sticker, it's survival for your mental health. Studies on aging with over 30,000 participants identified people who were socially isolated but reported low loneliness, small networks yet not suffering, sometimes functioning better than people with large circles who felt disconnected. This tells us the human need for connection is deeply personal and variable. Having only a handful of close relationships isn't a deficit, it's a legitimate personality orientation. Now, let's talk creativity. Einstein once said the monotony and solitude of a quiet life stimulates the creative mind. Modern neuroscience backs this up. When you're not constantly processing social stimulation, your brain enters what psychologists call divergent thinking mode. This is where you explore multiple solutions, make unusual connections, and generate original ideas without pressure to conform to groupthink. People with few friends aren't missing out, they're creating space for it. But here's something we rarely talk about. Having few friends doesn't automatically mean you're lonely, but it doesn't mean you're immune to isolation's risks either. Research from the National Institute on Aging shows chronic perceived isolation affects attention, cognition, and behavior in ways that impact long-term health. Studies even link persistent loneliness to cognitive decline and cardiovascular problems. So the question isn't how many friends you have, the real question is, do you feel connected to the people in your life? Does your current social setup align with what you actually need? Here's what psychological research reveals. People who thrive with fewer friendships share certain traits: strong internal compasses, comfortable with introspection, self-concept clarity, knowing who they are without constant feedback. They're not afraid of their own company because they've learned solitude isn't emptiness, it's space. Space to think, create, process emotions, and develop ideas that matter. If you've always felt out of step with a cultural mandate for large friend groups, psychology has validating news for you. Research shows people who prefer solitude demonstrate higher levels of psychological adjustment, stronger boundaries, and greater emotional resilience. They're not deficient in social skills. Often, they're quite emotionally intelligent precisely because they spend time reflecting on relationships rather than just accumulating them. The trap we fall into is assuming everyone needs the same social diet. Some people need daily interaction with multiple friends to feel alive. Others need one or two deep connections and lots of alone time to recharge. Neither is wrong, neither is healthier. They're just different psychological profiles shaped by personality, upbringing, and neurobiology. What matters, according to research, is alignment. Does your life match what you actually need? Or are you forcing yourself into a social mold that leaves you feeling drained and inauthentic? Because at the end of the day, the psychology of people with few friends isn't really about friendship at all. It's about understanding that human connection exists on a spectrum, and your place on that spectrum deserves to be honored, not pathologized. The person with 2 close friends and a rich internal life isn't failing. The person with 50 acquaintances and no one to call at 2 a.m. isn't winning. We're all trying to find the configuration of connection and solitude that lets us be most fully ourselves. And sometimes that means choosing the quiet, even when the world keeps telling you to choose the crowd. If this hit home for you, please subscribe to the channel.